Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Beef. Chris Blair, 15 minutes from right now from Norman, Oklahoma. We'll talk some LSU and Oklahoma baseball as they'll get underway 4 hours from now. Up there, I don't even know the name of the stadium, be quite honest with you. I thought that was the point where I would have delivered the stadium, and I think I know all the stadiums in the SEC. I don't, because I don't know the stadium at Oklahoma. I know that it's small. I know that it's not up to standard for SEC teams. And I know that I hope LSU wins 3 games there this weekend, but I don't know what it's called.
L. Dale Mitchell Park.
Shout out Dale. Probably gave them some cash.
I think we talked about this.
We may have.
A while ago. We were trying to figure out.
Did Dale give them cash, or did he play well at Oklahoma?
I remember he was a player a long time ago, maybe something like that.
Not on the team tonight. Not going to help you much.
No, he's not. Let's see. Yeah, it's
L. Dale Mitchell.
Seats 3,180.
That's pathetic.
He played in the 1940s. He holds OU's career and single season batting records.
Wow. Nobody could step up in the Gorilla Ball era and break old Dale's
40s.
record from the 40s?
Yeah, record in the 40s is standing. That's not a great sign.
Come on, Sooners. Somebody's got to swing the bats.
But hey, they got a new video and scoreboard in left field in 2009.
Boy.
In
2009, that's when the box was built.
And new chair seat backs were added in the 2011-12 seasons. And in 2012,
just in time for John Gray to show up.
And in 2012, a new warning track was installed, as well as field turf.
A new warning track was installed. Wow.
Yep. They
talk about amenities.
They ranked 42nd in attendance.
Okay. Look, I talked to Chris. He was a little bit, and we'll talk to him in 10 minutes, but he was a little bit surprised when they got to Norman for basketball this year at the facilities. He did not think that it was quite up to SEC standard.
I'll be honest with you. I'm just looking at a picture from the outside, and it doesn't look like much at all, really.
I wonder what does Tulane Stadium seat uptown? Because that feels like a little bit less than 3,000. I would guess Tulane Stadium seats 2,200.
I'm looking.
It's called Turchin Stadium.
Greer Field at Turkin Stadium, 5,000.
No, it didn't seat that last time I was there.
Hunt, the record attendance was 5,200 in 2016. They played LSU.
Okay. It's been I haven't been there since LSU played there. I mean, in 2014 probably, so it's probably been 11 years.
Okay.
Oklahoma seats half what Tulane seats?
Well, they don't even probably get 3,000.
That's a sad state of affairs.
But Tulane is it's a
good point that Nookie brings up. They played Ole Miss for the title a few years ago.
That is true.
Cade Horton, their ace from that year in the Cubs system. Need to get him up pretty quickly here. He's good. Got a good slider. All right, let's talk about something that I'm interested in. I don't know. There are probably some of you that are like, who gives a rip? But I'm just curious, because we all know that LSU's basketball program is not where it needs to be. That's pretty obvious. And they're trying to get it right this year in terms of spending more money and going to the transfer portal. So the question that I had was okay, what are the other schools that are in the Final Four doing? Because I'm not expecting LSU to compete with what Duke is doing, but Houston doesn't have far greater resources than LSU. Yes, they've got Tillman Fertitta. Yes, they've got the Fertitta Center. But you're still talking about just a Big 12 program that got a good coach and has got things moving in the right direction. So it's not apples to apples, but they're not Duke, okay? And then you got Auburn and Florida, who were really apples to apples with LSU. They're football schools that have got big budgets, big athletic programs that have made a commitment to basketball, and they've reached higher highs than LSU recently. So I'm looking at these Final Four teams, and I'm going, okay, well, how have they used the transfer portal? Well, Auburn's got 7 transfers that play for them. One of them, Chaney Johnson, played 3 seasons at D2 Alabama Huntsville. He's a big for him. D2. That's way down the line. And then you got Janai Broome, who everybody knows. Janai Broome was the number 471 prospect in the country by 247 coming out. He was from the state of Florida, ended up at Morehead State, then goes to Auburn and becomes a star and is potentially the National Player of the Year. Like, Florida's got 6 transfers on this roster that they play. Duke has got 5 transfers, and one of their transfers is Sion James. And there are probably a good number of you that are listening that know where Sion James comes from. Tulane. 3-star recruit, went to Tulane, at Duke now. Starts. That's not an unreasonable thing for LSU to be able to tap into. They got a guy from Tulane. He didn't play very well. You look at Houston, and they only have 2 transfers on that roster. Kelvin Sampson's done a really good job of grabbing guys from the high school ranks and keeping them in the program. But one of the guys that they start is L.J. Cryer, who was on Baylor's 2021 national championship team, and they got him to transfer over to Houston. Florida, Auburn, and Duke, not Houston, but Florida, Auburn, and Duke, all 3 of them have mid-major transfers that start for them. That, to me, is eye-opening. Because when you think about elite-level players that compete at the highest level to go to the Final Four, to go to the college football playoff, to go to the College World Series, every single team that's doing that now is using the mid-major ranks. And so I get it when there are LSU fans that look at what LSU's doing like, well, UNLV, who cares? Why do I care that you got a guy from Northeastern? And I am not suggesting that LSU is getting guys that are going to take them to the Final Four next year. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying the teams that are going to the Final Four are doing this at a high level, and LSU is not. You've got to identify the guys, which they have not. Well, I can't say that. Maybe they have identified guys they knew could get them to the next level, and they hadn't been able to get them. Maybe they've identified guys that they thought could, and they've gotten them and they couldn't. And that's on identification and development. And maybe this is the answer, throw in a little bit more money at it. One thing that I noticed in reading this story that I found on ESPN.com and going through some of these numbers is Florida Atlantic went to the Final Four 2 years ago. And we know that Dusty May took them, and he ended up at Michigan. But whatever happened to that team? Well, I'll tell you. Elijah Martin was on that team. He plays for Florida now. Vladislav Golden played on that team. He followed his coach to Michigan. And John L. Davis was on that team, and he transferred to Arkansas and had a monster game in the NCAA tournament. In their last game, in the Sweet 16, he scored 30. So you had 3 guys on that team that ended up at Florida and Michigan and Arkansas. And independent of LSU, you just have to look at that and be like, that is the new reality. That means that the mid-major is essentially dead. Because theoretically, those guys 5 years ago, 8 years ago, would have played together for 3 years because they're all still playing basketball. And they were on the FAU team that went to the Final Four. They probably would have been on the FAU team for 3 years together. That would have been a really good team. But instead, they're pillaged by the haves. And LSU's just got to get in on the mix on that. Shane LeBlanc in the Bayou Ford chat says, the big difference from those teams in LSU, they all have a good coach, huh? LSU doesn't. Well, I don't know that. It's completely fair for you to say that. Completely fair. Matt McMahon's SEC record and overall record at LSU is not good enough. No argument here. None. He did win a lot of games at Murray State. And there are a ton of mid-major coaches that can get it done at that level and move up to the highest level and don't get it done. I've never sat here and said, yep, Matt McMahon is knocking on the door of the Sweet 16, baby. Just give him more time. I've never said that. I've never said he's the answer. I've never said LSU's close. I just feel like it's a reasonable thing to do to see if he can't take the resources and go put a team together that's more capable than the one with no resources. That's all I've said. And I've been painted as a homer and an apologist and all this kind of stuff. I was referred to as the state media yesterday. But I'm just saying, like, I'd like to see him with a full deck of cards. And this is going to be a full deck of cards. And we'll see what he can do.
Yeah, but Hunt, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Here's what I'll say. all these people are saying this now, but I know that if they go out next year and they win 4 or 5 games in the league, then you're going to say that this is a problem and that they need to move on. Like it's not like you are going to continue to defend him no matter what.
No, I know. I've always said that, but it's just people have gotten. Most people have grown apathetic. Like I kind of judge the LSU fan base based on my close friend group. None of them, well, 2 of them grinded as hard as I do, and then there's a group of 8 that yes, they know who we're playing in football that next week. Yes, they know who our best defensive players are. When LSU loses 5 basketball games in a row, they are not watching the next 3, and they don't even know who we're playing. And so there's a huge apathetic group. Now we're playing in the NCAA tournament. They're putting their gear on and going to watch the game, and they're locked in. But they will, and I feel like that's a big majority of LSU fans that will tune out of basketball. But there is a vocal group that's ticked, and they're not going to be quote unquote unticked, which isn't a word. They're not going to get happy again until LSU has won some league games. They won't even be happy in November and December of next year if LSU's undefeated because of what LSU did this year where they played well in the non-conference and then got their butts kicked for 2.5 months in the league. So that's just the nature of where LSU basketball is right now, and I get it. But I'm going to give this a chance, and I'm going to pay attention to the guys that they sign in this portal class. Just saw that Virginia had a guy transfer to Louisville who was just an elite shooter, 42%.
Louisville, man.
That's the guy I want.
Yeah.
That is the guy I want. Now, I have no reason to believe that this Virginia transfer who went to Louisville ever even gave LSU a phone call. But that's the kind of guy I want. And that's the guy that I hope they get coming up next. We'll see. All right, that's LSU basketball and transfer portal basketball for the day. We'll take a timeout, come back with Chris Blair from Norman when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group. HighlandIG.com is that website. Look, storm season's always around the corner. And the time to consider what your insurance program looks like is not after the storm blows through. You start reading the fine print. Do you have the right business interruption? Do you even know what that is? Do you have the right limits? Can you avoid co-insurance penalties? If you don't know what co-insurance penalties are, that's probably on your broker. You probably should, because they can be real uncomfortable if you've got a property claim and you're not properly insured because you were trying to cut funds on your premium. Those are the type of things that aren't fun to talk about, but it's important. And the Highland Insurance Group will have those discussions with you. You can be promised one thing at the Highland Insurance Group, and it's that your policy is going to be placed appropriately and it's going to respond appropriately when that claim happens, whether it's a storm like I just talked about, whether it's a car accident, whether it's a lawsuit, cyber breach. That's what the Highland Insurance Group is here to do. Jonathan Carver and his team are phenomenal in terms of their expertise. Just let them audit your policies for free. It doesn't cost you anything. They'll tell you what they find. If it's really good, leave it there. If it's not, you need to fix it. And the Highland Insurance Group will do that for you. It's the Highland Insurance Group. Find them online, HighlandIG.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Norman, Oklahoma, 5:30, first pitch, 6 o'clock. You can listen to it on our sister station, Eagle 98.1. On the call, be the voice of the Tigers, Chris Blair. Joins us now from Oklahoma. Chris, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. Just looking out the window, just trying to see if I can see a little bit of sunshine, but not at the moment. But it's dry, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, I don't know much about weather. I know how many hours you sat at the box last weekend, and it feels like that's a possibility again. Is it a possibility this weekend with the storms rolling through?
Yeah, I think so. I've been watching since we got here yesterday afternoon. I've been kind of watching the local news and keeping an eye on it. And I think most of the rough stuff nearby, which didn't really hit Norman, was the night before, which would have been Tuesday night. Now, there's just this long line that keeps creeping from the Midwest towards the east, And that's why we got a cloudy sky today. Yesterday was actually pretty. It was a little cold, but, it was blue sky. But it looks like, based on what I'm hearing, it may be a little bit tomorrow and maybe the worst chance on Saturday. But one thing I have been told on my second trip to Norman is very much like Baton Rouge, in the sense that what could be looking bad or looking great can turn on a dime. So, we're just keeping our fingers crossed.
No doubt. It sounds like the weather should be pretty good for this one tonight. I don't know if you've been over to the ballpark, but we've been talking about it a little bit. It seems like kind of friends and family only from an SEC perspective, a little bit of a smaller ballpark. What can you tell us about the field LSU will play tonight?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it works. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what Jay and I were talking about Monday night on the show is, everything is there from a field perspective. Is it a show place like we go to a lot of times in the SEC, including the box? Well, no. It's a little more intimate, but again, the downside to that is you got a pretty good team, a top 10 team, and they're pretty excited about baseball. I've certainly known that being out and about in town the last 24 hours or so. So when you have a venue like that, if the crowd shows up this evening, it can become a pretty raucous atmosphere. But I wouldn't say it's the most up to date. But I don't know that players care about that. Once they're locked in, they get there. They just know they got to stand in at home plate and they got to get around the bases.
Cade Anderson's been so good this year. The long ball got him a little bit last weekend against Mississippi State. How do you expect him to respond in the ball game tonight? It'll be interesting to see, because I think Cade Anderson fits well in this matchup. And we talked about it a couple of times over the weekend. Mississippi State, their record's not great at this point, but they do have some pretty good guys in the lineup, and they got some guys that can take a ball out of the ballpark at any given moment, which we saw throughout that weekend. The good news was for LSU, a lot of times they didn't have a lot of guys on base. But I think with Oklahoma, it's a team, I don't want to say it's a carbon copy of what we've been accustomed to of recent years with Kentucky, but they are an aggressive team. And, they use everything that you can do in the rule book offensively to try to get people on, get them over, and get them in. And I think that fits well for Cade Anderson, because I think, not that they can't hit home runs, it's just that I think he can be a little more selective with his pitch mix. If he's got location tonight, the key will be making sure you don't put runners on, because once the leadoff guy is on, then everything changes and everything becomes on the table for the Oklahoma offense. And so if you can just, get that going, I think he'll be all right, even if he does get touched by a few long balls, here in game one. How comfortable do you think Jay Johnson is going from his starter to either Zach Cowan or Kason Evans and letting them finish it twice in a weekend? That's what we saw last week. And you think that's the plan?
Yeah, I think so. I think that was kind of the test. I asked Jay Monday night about, the matchup on Thursday last week where, again, Cade Anderson didn't have his best stuff. It wasn't a total bad outing, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't what we had seen. So somebody's got to come in and pick him up, and they needed 2 outs. They went to Connor Bench, who's typically been a strike thrower. And that's kind of where the issues are in the bullpen. And you and I talked about it Saturday night and into Sunday morning. Got a pretty sporty defense behind you. So when you come out of the bullpen, just throw strikes. I mean, yeah, it's great if you strike guys out and they can't hit your fastball or your wipeout slider's working, but you got a defense behind you. Don't walk them. And I thought that Connor Bench came in, got those 2 outs, and then you're able to hand it over to Zach, and Zach goes 4 full innings and is spectacular. So I think now, with what we've seen early on from Cowan, which I think Jay already had a sneaky suspicion of anyway, that's why he's in Baton Rouge now, I think there's no doubt that he's got the confidence that he's can certainly go an extended outing, especially if LSU's got the lead. I don't think he'd hesitate at all to go ahead and bring him in for 3-4 innings without a thought. And I think the same thing is true even with a freshman like Kason Evans, because so far he hasn't shown you anything but him delivering when called upon. And he got extended a little bit last weekend when, the margins were very small, as 2-1. I mean, one play here, one good at bat here for Mississippi State, that game completely changes. And you had the confidence and to put him out there, and Kason went out there and delivered. To me, and I did an interview this morning with the flagship here in Norman, and we talked about all the accolades and all the great things, this offense for LSU and Cade Anderson and Ianson's great performance. And, it's pretty easy when you say, what's your biggest concern? Your biggest concern is your bullpen beyond Case and Evans and Zach Cowan. And again, I think it goes back to you just got to get up there and throw strikes. You got a pretty good defense. If they're going to take it 400 feet out of the ballpark, well, that's going to happen in this sport. But it doesn't happen all the time. So, and especially against a team like Oklahoma, again, they have potential for power. But right now, just allow your defense, get up there, throw strikes, and let your defense play behind you. And that way you're not putting back-to-back walks and hitting batters, and suddenly a solo home run, which will happen in this game, doesn't become a 2 and 3 or 4-run home run.
Ethan Fry is not a guy that I talked about a lot entering the season. He had been on campus for 2 years and had a minimal impact. Of course, as a freshman on a national championship team, you're not going to see a ton of impact. And he got hurt last year and gutted it out, but didn't give LSU much offensively. He's been awesome, even against right-handed pitching. What have you seen from Ethan Fry, and what kind of impact do you think he has moving forward?
Well, knock on wood, I think is, he stays healthy, that's the big difference for me after his first 2 years. Not that, wow, he can really help you offensively. I think we all kind of knew that when he signed and arrived at LSU. But I think that's the missing ingredient that we didn't have, in 2024. I mean, you got a guy like Jared Jones, who everybody's well aware of what he can do anytime he's standing at the plate. And, in that 23 team, as they headed down the stretch to the title, I mean, suddenly you had Tommy White closer up there, top of the order, and then you had Jones in there. So I think Ethan Fry is coming in, and he's the perfect guy to protect a dude like Jared Jones. And not only occasionally, but as we've seen here over the last 5 or 6 games, I mean, he's doing what you want him to do. It's not, every once in a while he's going to run into a baseball and hit a home run. I mean, he's being consistent at the plate with, finding the outfield grass and putting it over the fence. I think his emergence is a key factor in how good this team can be and how far they can go in 2025. And I know that's a lot of pressure on one guy, but when you look at the rest of the lineup, you'd have to ask opposing pitchers and opposing coaches, where is the weak link? Where is that section of this lineup that you feel like, okay, let me get through these first 5 or these first 6, and you just don't have that ability to relax. And you look at last weekend, you look at the midweek this week, the backside of that order, 7, 8, and 9, whether it's Hernandez, or whether it's Reeves, whether it's Braswell, and certainly the consistency of Stanfield. I mean, that having a guy like Ethan Fry makes that lineup very difficult top to bottom.
No doubt about it. One of the guys I've been interested to hear Jay talk about, and he's done it a good bit, is Luis Hernandez, and not only his offensive role, but what he's meant to the pitching staff as well with his defense. I know that you've talked to Jay about Luis. What has that sounded like?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we came into the season, I think we were all like, okay, which guy? It seems like the last couple of years, haven't we been, all right, here's our defensive catcher, and then here when we need an offensive push, we're going to put this guy in. And you never really want to be in a situation when you're sacrificing one for the other. But, those are 2 qualities that are hard to find. Finding a very good, leadership quality in a catcher that also performs behind the plate, that also can give you plenty of offense. Sure, if everybody had one, everybody would be successful like LSU. But I think Hernandez's defense has even surprised Jay Johnson. And, I think when you go back and listen to some of the things he said in fall, as well as the lead up to the opening game, I don't know that, and maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't remember Luis Hernandez being praised for what he's going to be able to do working with the pitchers and how he will receive the pitches and how he will protect the plate and eliminate, some of these more aggressive teams when they want to run on the base pads. And I think that, to me, is what has been the big asset that he has brought to it. And I think he's the everyday LSU catcher. That's what we've seen here of late. That's good to have when you've got some other guys who are going to get continued reps, like a Cade Aaron-Beatty, or even a Blaze Priester. But you kind of, to me, are getting, the quintessential catcher when you've gotten the way Luis Hernandez has played so far.
Chris, have a great call this weekend. Safe travels back. We appreciate some time.
Absolutely, man. Hope we get all 3 in and 3 big wins for the Tigers.
We would like that a lot. He is Chris Blair. You can hear him and Of course, the longtime SID of LSU baseball, Bill Franquez, on the call tonight. They'll be coming your way pregame at 5:30 and first pitch at 6 o'clock over on Eagle 98.1. I want to remind you our Thursday show is brought to you by Sagrera Farms, brand new sponsor here, and we are fired up to tell you about Sagrera Farms Premium Beef. It's just north of Baton Rouge, about 35 miles away from where I'm sitting right now, and quite simply, they produce top 1% beef in the country. You're talking about a process that is scientific in nature, and it's labor of love for Sean Sagrera up there in Ethel, Louisiana. They raise their cattle on grass. They finish them on grain, talking about aging 45 days to produce premium and prime Angus beef. You buy sides or whole cows, put them in the freezer, and they're always ready for you at home. You can do ribeyes, fillets, strips, ground beef. It's just a completely different experience than just heading over to the local store and grabbing some meat for dinner on a Thursday. You can have the best in beef from Sagrera Farms. I've been able to taste Sean's product. It is phenomenal. You need to check it out. You can go up to the farm. You can check out what you're going to buy. They're going to have it cut for you. They're going to have it wrapped for you, and they'll send you home with an incredible load of premium prime Angus beef. It's Sagrera Farms. They're our new Thursday sponsor. You can call Sean at 719-1723, 719-1723. That is Sagrera Farms. Take a time out. Come back. Let's talk some LSU wide receivers when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show. You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Thursday show is brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Beef. If you were listening last week, you heard me talking about the best springs that I had kind of seen thus far. And I gave you kind of the disclaimer, like, look, I'm not going to be able to give you anything super concrete here. We're watching some practice, okay? It's not a game. It's not anything that is immediately translatable. I think y'all have been to enough spring football games to realize that it is just that. It's spring football, and there are certainly guys that stand out in the spring that aren't going to impact the fall a lot, and there are certainly some guys that had their issues in the spring that will really come on strong in the fall. But we can just kind of deduce little things here and there from what we watch, some of the lineups that we see, some of the skill sets that we understand. And one of the things that I like about the composition of LSU's wide receiving core is the speed and the over-the-top playmaking ability. Last year, we know that LSU didn't really do that a lot. It was a lot of around the line of scrimmage stuff. It was a lot of intermediate stuff. And LSU was really good at it. They completed as many passes as anybody in the Southeastern Conference. They were the best team in the conference on third downs because of that consistency in the intermediate. They were really efficient at doing that. But it becomes more and more difficult to do when it's all you're doing. And they just weren't an explosive team down the field. And sometimes that happens when your quarterback is not capable of making those throws. That's not the case with LSU. Garrett Nussmeier can make throws down the field, and he wants to make throws down the field. But like Kyron Lacy's not a great deep threat. He's not an elite speed guy. He's not an elite high jumper. He's a productive receiver, really good at contested catches, and had a good career at LSU. But he's not an elite deep threat. Aaron Anderson's not an elite deep threat. There just aren't a lot of elite deep threats that are Aaron Anderson's stature. You can be. Like Rashid Shaheed's not the tallest guy in the NFL, but he's that fast. But Anderson's does his best work around the line of scrimmage and the intermediate stuff. And certainly Mason Taylor, huge focus in LSU's offense last year, not going to beat you over the top. So when you talk about your top three pass catchers not being explosive playmakers down the field, it limits what you can do pushing the ball down the field. And I mentioned Chris Hilton last week as a guy that I think changes that. And I still very much feel that way. But he's not alone. You can't just put a safety over the top of Chris Hilton and feel like you've got LSU licked. Like Barian Brown is as explosive a player and as speedy a player with the ball as there is in the Southeastern Conference. That's evidenced by his kick return success. You don't have a lot of guys that run 4, 5, 6 40s that run a bunch of kicks back for touchdowns. Barian Brown runs a bunch of kicks back for touchdowns because he's usually the fastest guy on the field. We were watching a rep 2 weeks ago on a Saturday, and he ran right by DJ Pickett. Now, Pickett grabbed a little jersey and was able to close because Pickett's an elite speed guy too. But Brown showed that flash when he just flat ran straight past him. And you feel like Nick Anderson provides a deep threat. He certainly did for Oklahoma 2 years ago. Not last year, didn't play very much, but he provides a deep threat as well. He's got a bigger frame, but he's still got big-time speed. And those three guys, I think, can terrify you as a defensive coordinator and as a set of safeties. Anderson's worked a little bit more down the field, but that's not going to be the bulk of his work. And certainly Xavier Thomas and what he's done in the kick return game is explosive as well, but I think more of what Xavier Thomas is going to do with this team is going to be in the jet sweep game. They've put him in the backfield a little bit. They've handed him the ball, and certainly you can use him in the intermediate as well, kind of as a backup to Anderson, I think. But the other guys are legitimate speed threats and deep threats. And LSU had that with Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, and it showed. LSU had that with Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, and it showed. Now, Chase was better deep threat than Jefferson. Jefferson's more of a middle of the field kind of guy. But when you have those guys, it opens everything up. And when you consider how productive LSU was last year in the passing game without the deep threat, thinking about what they could be if they can make that work early in the season is tantalizing. Like, they could be among the best passing offenses in college football. And that's really the goal. And they shouldn't be limited in any way by the personnel they have. There is not anything that you would like to be able to do in the passing game that LSU doesn't have the personnel to do. They've got big frames. They've got smaller and quicker frames. They've got speed and deep threats. They've got tight end weapons, including one in Trey'Dez Green that almost nobody else has. Like, everything you could want in a wide receiving core and a pass catching group, LSU's got. And oh, by the way, they're returning a quarterback who was top 10 in the country in passing yards last year. So that to me feels like such a great base to work off of. Now, there are other things that have got to work in unison with that. You have to run the ball a little bit to get to the play action to take the shots. You've got to run the ball a little bit to get those defenders creeping up. You've got to pass protect. We know LSU is elite in pass protection up front. Last year, the new guys that are coming in, whatever group of 5 it is that they're going to settle on and figure out who's going to be up there, that group has got to block and keep Garrett Nussmeier upright because he's not going to be able to wiggle out of things like Jaden Daniels was and run for 70 yards against Florida or 50 more against Florida, and you understand what I'm talking about here. Other things have to work in unison with that pass catching group. But when you look at LSU's wide receiver group as a whole, there is nothing that they should not be able to execute in the passing game. It is a complete group of dynamic players with different skill sets. And that is an awesome, awesome thing at Garrett Nussmeier's disposal. One of the names I haven't mentioned yet here that Brambo did in the Bayou Ford chat is Jelani Watkins. It's fun to talk about Jelani Watkins because Jelani Watkins is real fast. He's running track for LSU this spring, and he has been amazing on the track. He hasn't been out there a lot to practice with football and to produce with football. There are a lot of guys in front of him on this depth chart that may make things a little bit difficult to inch toward the front of that depth chart. But it's a nice little insurance policy to have to go, well, if I need to find a guy who runs about a 10 flat 100, we can go find that guy. Again, may not be necessary for this team, but it's there in the rearview mirror. So look at LSU's wide receiving core. They're on spring break this week. Of course, we are on a Thursday, so they've got one more day of spring break away from school, and they're back in action next week. And they did just make the announcement on what all is going on with the spring finale that is to come next week. I got the Got the press release from Michael Bonnet and LSU, and so I'll kind of read parts and part from it here. Starting next Saturday, 9 a.m., football team's going to walk from football ops into Tiger Stadium. They'll arrive at 9:15. The gates will open at 9:30 from Tiger Stadium on the west side only. There will be individual drills starting at 10:35. They'll have two 15-minute quarters of a scrimmage at 11:10. Then they'll have a halftime. They don't really know what the second half's going to look like, but they'll do some of that. Then they'll do an autograph session on the field, and the event will wrap up at 1:40. So if you're a fan and you'd like to be there for all of it, gates open at 9:30 next Saturday, and they'll go until just before 2 o'clock. So that's a look at LSU's spring finale inside Tiger Stadium. All right, let's take one more time out, and we'll close it out. Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is that website. Every single model, from the entry level to the highest end, from the sedan to the SUV, comes with safety awards. And they all come with the exact same safety features on the baseline. You're talking about IIHA top safety picks, some of them IIHA top safety picks plus. Genesis of Baton Rouge is a phenomenal place to start your car buying adventure. You can start online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com, but go by and see them. Step foot on the lot. Let their brand ambassadors walk you through. You'll feel like a guest and not a customer. They're not going to be pushy. They're not going to be super aggressive. They're not going to upsell you. I know that a lot of folks had that impression at car dealerships, and that's rooted in truth. Most stereotypes are. That's not going to be your experience at Genesis of Baton Rouge. It's a luxury experience. It's a luxury vehicle, and it's luxury service after the sale as well. It's all there at Genesis of Baton Rouge. Check them out online, GenesisofBatonRouge.com, GenesisofBatonRouge.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
ESPN Baton Rouge and the Baton Rouge Clinic bring you the 2025 Dreams Come True Radiothon. Dreams Come True is an organization designed to help grant dreams for children with life-threatening illnesses and their families. The Dreams Come True Radiothon is also presented by Lewis Mechanical, Patient Plus, and Action Industries, plus Subaru of Baton Rouge, Service Chevrolet, Luba, and Duplessis Pool Builders. Visit 1045ESPN.com to help us reach our goal, and together we can make dreams come true.
Thursday show is brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Beef. If you like to have a freezer full of prime Angus beef, Sagrera Farms is the place for you to go. Just north of Baton Rouge. Truly a hidden gem right here in Baton Rouge. If you're sick of quality of beef that's just not to your standard, well, you can fix that. Sagrera Farms is in the top 1% nationwide, and it's right here just outside of Baton Rouge. Give Sean Sagrera a call, 719-1723. And get you all fixed up. You can go out to the farm, pick out the beef that you're looking for. They'll have it cut for you, have it packaged for you, and you can take it right home to the freezer. It's Sagrera Farms Premium and Prime Angus Beef. All right, LSU and Oklahoma tonight. This is an important game for LSU. If you can win tonight, man, does this thing set up for you, because Kyson Witherspoon is very much the best weapon that Oklahoma has at its disposal. Now, to Oklahoma's credit, they did lose the game that Kyson Witherspoon pitched against Mississippi State, and they won the next two games in Norman against State to win that series. So they can do that, but obviously they'd like to win with the midseason pitcher of the year for D1 baseball. So if you're watching the game tonight and you're a little frustrated that LSU is not riling up 15, 16 runs, that's not really in the cards tonight. Witherspoon is a star. So if you're LSU, you're looking to work that pitch count. You're looking to make sure you see the ball up in the strike zone, because he's going to throw that slider that's going to drop off the table. And then you try to work the pitch count and get what you can. Alabama was able to get some hits and knock some runs home early in that game. But the key really is to get him out of the game. And if you can do that after 5 or so innings, you'll really feel like you've got a good chance to win the ball game. So that's a key. You like to see Cade Anderson get off on the right foot tonight. Keep Oklahoma off base, specifically the leadoff men, because they love to steal bases. And while he's a left-hander and he gives them a little bit of trouble from that perspective, it's going to be a tough game for LSU tonight. There's no question about it. I'm excited to watch. At 6 o'clock, we're just over 3 hours from first pitch from Norman. All right, let's do some Take It or Leave It, back.
Take
Take it or leave it.
Today's hottest stories in sports, news, and sometimes even Hunt's life. The question is, will he take them or leave them?
Just take it.
Alrighty, first one here. I don't know if you saw this. Paul Skeens, obviously, unsurprisingly, very good in his start yesterday. But after the game was over, somebody asked him about his appearance in GQ.
I did see that.
Yeah, and he said, quote, yeah, I don't know. I didn't know what GQ was until the offer came, but glad I did it. I mean, how'd I look? Paul Skeens not knowing what GQ is. Take it or leave it.
I'll take it. Paul's had a lot going on the last few years. He's had an opportunity to play some high-level college baseball, get drafted. He's also, worked at the Air Force. So there's been a lot going on. Not sure GQ is on his radar, but when you date a model that's in GQ, you might end up in GQ, and he did. I don't think anybody's really going to be looking at him in those pictures, but I'm thrilled that he could have the opportunity to do that, like you said, but good at pitching.
All right, next one here. The Oakland, not Oakland Raiders.
Nope, that's incorrect.
There's no Oakland
There's
teams.
no Oakland anything.
No, there isn't. I don't. It's really sad, but anyways, the Las Vegas Raiders signed Geno Smith to a 2-year, $75 million extension. Unsurprisingly, 66 of it is guaranteed, as all contracts now are apparently with quarterbacks. The Raiders signing Geno to $75 million extension. Take it or leave it.
Leave it.
Just leave it alone.
I mean, they're not very good. He's not that good. They'll be not very good together. So you're in a division that is really good. You got a great coach now in LA with the Chargers. You've got the standard in the sport with the Chiefs. The Broncos have got a really good coach, and they made the playoffs last year. The Raiders stink, and they got a mediocre quarterback. And that's just part of the rat race of trying to find your next quarterback. The Saints are in the middle of it as well. The Raiders, I don't think, have got their answer there.
All right, last one here. Seiya Suzuki hit 2 homers yesterday for the Cubs in a 10-2 win over the Athletics.
That's right.
Oakland Athletics.
That's correct.
And not Las Vegas Athletics.
Not yet.
Not Sacramento
They do have
Athletics.
the Las Vegas city logo on their sleeve.
They do. They're not the Sacramento Athletics, though. However, even though they are playing in Sacramento, they are not the Sacramento Athletics. They're simply the Athletics.
Right.
That is their name. 45 homers for Seiya. Take it or leave it.
I'll leave that. He's going to get hurt.
Wow, that's pretty rude.
That's what he does. He gets hurt. He's a great hitter, but he gets hurt. It's just it's part of it. Did you check the forecast for Chicago over the next 5 or 6 days?
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's cold.
Yeah.
The high on Monday when they're playing a night game is like 39.
This is what you have with the Cubs in their first month and a half of home games.
They spent the first 2 weeks away from home. Now they're going to go home, and it's going to be real cold.
And probably windy, too, because usually it's windy.
It's the Windy City is what I'm told.
Yeah,
That's what I'm told.
That's actually not why it's called the Windy City, though.
Because of the wind?
It's not why it's called that.
Why is it called that?
It's because it became popular because people called all of the politicians windbags.
Ah.
And they said all the politicians in Chicago were windbags, so it became the Windy City.
I feel like every city could be the Windy City then.
How many architecture tours have you been on? They say that on every single one.
You think I'm listening?
Obviously
They got
not.
beer on there. I'm going through the Chicago
gosh.
River. I'm not really listening to that. It's not really about the tour guide, the Chicago Fire, or whatever.
I'm disappointed that you aren't paying attention.
You got cold pops and gorgeous views. I'm not trying to listen to the windbag politicians.
All right, well, you would have known that if you'd have listened, but that's all right.
Maybe next time. I'm sure I'll go on it again.
Yeah.
But probably won't listen again. Just a hunch. Love Chicago. And I just found out my buddy booked a trip to go up there with his kids. And I was thinking, I have not been to Chicago since 2021. No, sorry, 2022 is the last time I went. And I don't think I'm going to go again till maybe 27.
Oh, wow.
Which is just a real bummer. That's 5
pretty sad,
years. That'll
dude.
be my longest go without going to Chicago.
I'm going
since
in
I was
the end of
little.
May, so.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it warms up, which it may not.
It's the very end of May, so it
hopefully
should be.
I've done May before, and it was 80 one day and 35 one day and 70
We don't
one day.
need that.
So,
Let's just maybe 70. That'd be good.
me and my dad had to go buy jackets because we didn't bring any because we're not all that bright. It was May. We didn't think we needed jackets. We needed jackets. All right, LSU and Oklahoma tonight. Let's hope they get it done. I'll be at Red Stick Sports tomorrow. Looking forward to that. We'll talk to Preston Guy and Koki Riley up there from Norman. Matt's going to drive you home next on After Further Review. We're back tomorrow, same time, different place. We'll see you then for a Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.